Hello guys, it is me again, it's RFan34, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to day 8 of this 31 Days of Horror Challenge in October. Now you're on day 8. I figured this would be a really good one for me to talk about for this month. If you've seen the first video I did where I showed every single one I'll be reviewing, or at least mentioned it, I figured that this would be one for day 8. Because, you know, watching this film again, it's you know, like I said, I kind of paused there for a second. It's like, after I watched this again, it's really one of my favorite horror films of all time. It's one of my favorite horror films from the 80s. It's one of my favorite films, period, from the 80s. I believe this was in 82. Yeah, 82. And, of course, that review is on Poltergeist. Now, Poltergeist was a film that was directed by Tobe Hooper. I know there was a lot of backstory of how much was Tobe Hooper, how some of this might have been Spielberg. There's always this kind of that debate of who directed what and things like that. And I know Steven Spielberg refuses to do a special edition. From what I've heard, I don't know if this is the story or not, or what it is, but he doesn't want to do a special edition of the DVD because of all the backstory problems of how he came in and directed stuff, but Tobe Hooper was credited as director. But you know, this film deserves a special edition. It does. It really does deserve a special edition. It's a popular name. It's a popular horror film that everybody knows about. It has great characters. Has an iconic moment, you know, "They're Here" by Carol Ann, the little girl, Heather O'Rourke, which you see her there. You know, I tell you what, a feeling came over me when I was watching this movie, and every single time Heather O'Rourke was on screen, I saw her face, I almost kind of choked up a little bit, because knowing what happened to Heather O'Rourke in real life, how she fell ill many years later and died at a very young age, and just see that happen to a little girl who just seemed to have such a great presence in a movie, was, you know, cute as a button, just seems like a very nice person. When you see interviews and things like that, you know, it's a shame that what happened to Heather O'Rourke in real life, and you know, watching her on screen, almost kind of got choked up a little bit. You know, just knowing what happened to her a few years after this movie. And Heather O'Rourke is fantastic in this movie. She really is fantastic, and I know she went on to have a couple small roles in Happy Days, and of course she was in the Poltergeist sequels. Of course, Poltergeist 3. She was ill with I think they done with something with the flu, and it was just a really pretty bad situation. And I know there's also all this stuff behind the scenes, a lot of bad vibes with this movie, with some of the people. In the sequel, you had the really old guy who died of cancer because apparently he was really sick when they did the movie and he died. Of course, with Heather O'Rourke passing away during Poltergeist 3. And of course, the other girl in this, I forget the actor's name, but it's Dominique something. I should know the name, but I'm not remembering the last name, so I apologize. But Dominique something, who was killed by a jealous lover. So there's a lot of really bad history behind the Poltergeist legacy and things like that, which is a shame, knowing what happened to all these people. But Poltergeist, like I said, is a classic movie, and basically the whole idea is that a little girl and her family, they move into this house, and there's all these supernatural things happening, and of course you get this scene here where Heather O'Rourke, Carol Ann, is looking at the TV, the static TV, and then she looks over and they go, or she goes, "They're here." A great line. Whenever you think of like great horror, iconic horror lines, this is always one of the top ones that I always think of. And this has a really solid cast as well, besides like Heather O'Rourke and things like that. But you also have Jo Beth Williams, Craig T. Nelson. You even have a little role by James Karen, the late great James Karen, who was in Return of the Living Dead, among many other movies. And granted, it says Tobe Hooper directed this. If you know, that's because he is credited as director. I think this is one of Tobe Hooper's best movies. Like, I really do enjoy Chainsaw Massacre, The Mangler, even the Toolbox Murders that he did in 2004. I enjoy. I'm trying to think what else Tobe Hooper did. He's done a couple of other movies too, but and that's another guy I missed, Tobe Hooper. It's a shame that a lot of these people that are behind this movie are not with us anymore. You know, Tobe Hooper is no longer with us. Jerry Goldsmith, who did the music, he's no longer with us anymore either. Of course, Dominique, no longer with us. Heather O'Rourke, no longer with us. James Karen, no longer with us anymore either. So, but Poltergeist, I mean, what more can you say about Poltergeist that hasn't been said before? It's one of those supernatural horror films that it's just a classic. Really solid cast, really likable cast, especially Heather O'Rourke as Carol Ann. She does a great job. Really wonderful special effects of the supernatural elements going on. I kind of miss, this is like what I miss about supernatural movies. Like nowadays they kind of do like CGI and things like that. This was all done practical. And Frank Marshall actually had a hand in, Frank Marshall actually had a hand in this as a producer. And I think Frank Marshall, I think that's the same guy that directed Congo. But I believe that's the same guy. But, yeah, story by Steven Spielberg, screenplay by Steven Spielberg, produced by Spielberg, things like that. But, I mean, what more can you say about Poltergeist that hasn't been said before? I mean, it's not like really much of an in-depth review because it's kind of hard talking about a film that everybody knows about. But Poltergeist, classic. So that is pretty much it for my review for Poltergeist. Thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for the next review. So I will see you guys next time. You guys take care.